would you like to please do roll call, please? And for the public, I just want everybody to know, this is for the French Quarter Economic Development District, and this will be our agenda. So let's go. Thank you, Ms. Laura.
Councilmember Palmer,
Here.
Councilmember Jeruso, Councilmember Moreno, Councilmember Banks, Councilmember Brissette.
Banks is here.
Okay, thank you. Councilmember Nguyen.
Present.
Okay.
I'm here.
Oh,
Madam Clerk.
Councilman.
Good morning.
Good
everybody.
morning. Thank you.
Councilmember Jeruso will be joining us later,
Okay.
but we have a quorum.
Yes.
Good morning, council members and the public. Morning, we will be passing the ballot language for a new, to renew the French Quarter Economic Development District sales tax. This is the next step in a process that started on December 17th, 2020, when this body passed the notice of intent to hold today's meeting. There will be two instruments, one resolution calling for the election with the sales tax ballot language included, and one motion authorizing me as the council member whose district includes the French Quarter as the signatory on any document pertaining to this tax. We will start today by reading the agenda in full and then taking a 30-minute recess to allow for public comment. Anyone wishing to comment should go to the council.nola.gov and fill out an online public comment form. Only written public comments will be accepted. Public comment will be limited to one comment per person per item. Comments should also be limited to 2 minutes when read aloud and be germane to the agenda item at hand. Public comment will be closed at the end of the 30-minute public comment period. No written comments will be accepted beyond that point. Ms. Laura, can you now have the agenda read in full, please?
French Quarter Economic Development District Agenda, January 14, 2021. Orders of business. Number one, the French Quarter Economic Development District, FQEDD, motion number M20211, FQEDD M 2021-1 by District Member Gisselson Palmer by request to appoint members of the FQEDD's governing authority to act as authorized representatives of FQEDD governing authority for the purpose of executing legislative instruments, cooperative endeavor agreements, and any other documents relating to the governance and operation of the FQEDD. Number two, the French Quarter Economic Development District FQEDD Resolution R 2021-2, FQEDD R 2021-2 by District Member Gisselson Palmer by request, authorizing and calling an April 24, 2021 election at which the voters of the FQEDD will be asked to authorize an increase of 0.245% in the sales tax within the boundaries of the FQEDD for the furtherance of economic development projects pursuant to the Louisiana Revised Statute 33-9038-31 et SEQ. And we have an amendment on, and this amendment is done by District Member Gisselson Palmer. On the third unnumbered line of the last paragraph on page 2 of Exhibit A, delete 40,000 and insert in lieu thereof 10,600. Number 2, beginning on the 11th unnumbered line on page 2 of the resolution, following the word services, replace the words with a threshold of $2 million dedicated to supplemental police patrols and a 50-50 split above that threshold divided between growing the patrols and funding public safety programs as provided by the New Orleans Police Department, with the words, with the initial $2 million collected in any year dedicated to supplemental police patrols and any additional revenue to be divided equally between additional patrols and public safety programs, including homeless assistance. Number 3, beginning on the 7th unnumbered line of the quoted proposition language on page 1 of Exhibit A, following the word services, replace the words with a threshold of $2 million dedicated to supplemental police patrols and a 50-50 split above that threshold divided between growing the patrols and funding public safety programs as provided by the New Orleans Police Department, with the words, with the initial $2 million collected in any year dedicated to supplemental police patrols and any additional revenue to be divided equally between additional patrols and public safety programs, including homeless assistance. Number 4, beginning on the 15th unnumbered line on page 2 of the resolution, following the second instance of the word fund insert and subject to quarterly budget and expenditure reports to the City Council. Number 5, beginning on the 11th unnumbered line of the quoted proposition language on page 1 of Exhibit A, following the second instance of the word fund, insert, and subject to quarterly budget and expenditure reports to the City Council. Council members, we need to suspend the rules to add this amendment.
So moved.
Second.
Councilmember Gibson Palmer,
Yay.
Councilmember Nguyen,
Yay.
Councilmember Jeruso, Councilmember Banks, Councilmember
Yay.
Banks, yes, Councilmember Brissette.
Yes.
Thank you, council members. And I just would like to reiterate too, I know you've seen some of these amendments last night. This was after conversations with the administration to ensure that there was flexibility with the funding in terms of public safety programs, which we absolutely concurred with, and that reflects the wishes of the administration. In addition to that, the second part of that's in the red line that you see on the screen, and subject to quarterly budget and expenditure reports to the City Council, was offered by Council President Helene Moreno, and we absolutely think that's a great addition to that. And wonderfully enough, it keeps the ballot language within the required size. So thank you both. I want to thank the administration, and I want to thank Council President Moreno for offering these two amendments. And also, just so the public knows, this is what is offered. They have not been voted on yet, but we wanted to have these up before we go into public comment so that people have the opportunity to comment on them. So thank you. Ms. Laura, at this point, should you read the language now, or do I read the language? I do? Okay, thank you. So, shall a 0.245% increase in the sales tax be levied within the boundaries of the French Quarter Economic Development District, FQEDD, with the exception of such a levy on hotel rooms, to be collected on the sale at retail, the use, the lease or rental, the consumption and storage for use or the consumption of tangible personal property, and sales of services within the boundaries of the FQEDD for a period of 5 years, beginning May 1st, 2021, and ending April 30th, 2026. An estimated $2 million reasonably expected at this time to be collected as a result of the levy per year for the purpose of funding post-certified supplemental police patrols and homeless assistance services, with the initial $2 million collected in any year dedicated to supplemental police patrols and any additional revenue to be divided equally between additional patrols and public safety programs, including homeless
Okay,
assistance,
I'm coming.
administered by the French Quarter Management District for fiscal and operational oversight of the FQEDD Trust,
We got the amendment.
subject to quarterly budget and expenditure reports to the City Council to facilitate economic development within the FQEDD. So with that, council members, we will now recess for 30 minutes to allow for public comment. Thank you very much.
Council members, it's been 30 minutes. The public comment period is now closed.
see what we have to do, we'll have to do.
Okay, council members. I think we can have a roll call to reestablish quorum. Ms. Laura,
Councilmember Gissison Palmer,
Hold on.
yay.
Councilmember Banks, Councilmember Nguyen,
Yay.
Councilmember Brissette,
Yay.
Councilmember Moreno,
Present.
Councilmember Jeruso.
I'm here.
We have 7 members.
Six members.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yes, six.
It's
All
all
right.
Before we vote on the amendment, I want to briefly explain where this language comes from and what this is saying. After the defeat on December 5th of a previous initiative, my office believed it was prudent to put this matter in the hands of the various organizations in the French Quarter that work to represent the voters. Because the FQMD board serves as the common point for all of them and also has 2 mayoral and 1 council appointment, I believe this was the best entity suited to carry that out. They worked with stakeholders to craft this proposition, which if passed, would see the FQMD will spend up to $2 million of the tax collection each supplemental. I'm sorry, did somebody say something, Ms. Laura? No?
I didn't say.
Sorry. Which if passed on supplemental police services through the NOPD 8th District. This will allow the blue light patrols to continue. Any collections over $2 million would be split 50-50 between additional patrols and public safety services like homeless outreach and assistance. The amendment to this does all 3 things. The first part is it amends the ballot language to provide more clarity about how the funds will be split and utilized. It is the same substance as the FQMD proposed, translated into more precise language. The second part adjusts the projected cost of the election to $10,600. And then if there are no questions, oh, I'm sorry. And then the third part institutes the quarterly reporting requirements. And that was offered by Council President Moreno. And we appreciate that very much. And then those quarterly requirements will be given to the City Council, which serves as the governing authority for this EDD. Okay, now do we have any questions or comments from my colleagues before we have public comment?
I do, Councilmember Palmer.
Yes, Councilmember Nguyen.
Yes, thank you so much. First of all, I just want to thank your team. I know you guys have put in a lot of work in reference to this. We saw what happened in December in reference to this ballot. And I definitely want to make sure that we have the proper ballot language so that way there is a win. But I do have some concerns. And I'd like to offer just a friendly amendment. I think the first part, if we could actually get the amendment pulled up on the screen, maybe that could kind of help guide our conversation. But the first part of my friendly amendment is the part where it say equally divided between additional patrol and homelessness program. While many times we don't know the need of patrol versus public safety programs within a year. And so I definitely don't want a terminology like equally to restrict the use of the fund if it's needed more for homelessness or versus additional patrol. And I think that this is something that that I hope that you will consider, removing the word equally. And then the other part is that I still continue to struggle with, and I'd like to recommend that we strike out administered by the French Quarter Management District for fiscal and operational oversight of the FQEDD Trust Fund and services provided. Thank you, Councilmember Moreno, for offering the subject to quarterly budget and expenditure report to the City Council. But I just, again, feels that when you have non-elected individuals administering and providing oversight over public funds, it puts pause to me. We hear it all the time in reference to different organizations not being the elected body and not being held accountable to funds by the public. And so that is my friendly amendment. Again, removing and striking out the word equally, and striking out administered by the French Quarter Management District for fiscal and operational oversight of the FQEDD trust fund and services provided by such end.
Thank you, Councilmember. Again, this language was created by all the different groups that actually have to vote on this, or the residents groups, and in partnership with the businesses at FQMD to come up with this language. I see Ms. Carly Frankic on the line. Would you like to explain the process before we respond further and have a conversation?
Thank you. I really want to thank you all for inviting us to discuss Supplemental Police Patrols in the French Quarter and the unique role that the French Quarter Management District plays in bringing together the residential and business stakeholders of the French Quarter. No other public agency has a similar representation as this. The French Quarter Management District was created by the Louisiana Legislature in 2007 as the means for the residential and business communities to work together to protect, preserve, and maintain the French Quarter as a clean, safe, vibrant, friendly neighborhood for residents, businesses, and visitors. FQMD is governed by a 13-member board of commissioners, including 2 mayoral appointees, 1 District C appointee, and the remainder appointed by residential and businesses based in the quarter. The FQMD board represented a diverse group of stakeholders who live, work, own property, and are businesses in the French Quarter, all of which are invested in protecting and improving the vitality and security and infrastructure of this gem of a neighborhood that supports the livelihood of our region's residents, the city, and state. So over the past 6 years, the French Quarter has benefited from $6.7 million in investment in supplemental police patrols paid for by the hospitality industry, through the hotel self-assessment fee, and by locals and visitors via the FQEDD sales tax. Each year, 5.1 of that investment went to the Louisiana State Police, and 1.2 of that 6.7 was invested in the FQMD Supplemental Police Patrol Program that folks know as the French Quarter Task Force. Uses post-certified New Orleans Police Department detail officers. And we knew the economic impact of COVID-19 would have an unfathomable impact on the hospitality industry, and which directly funded the supplemental patrols. The city reduced the deployment of the Louisiana State Police, and at the end of 2020, their CEA for an operation of the LSP Troop N ended. The sales tax expired in December without renewal of the voters due to a lack of a clear plan from the city that prioritized post-certified police officers. Now, FQMD Supplemental Police Patrol Program practically patrols the French Quarter 24 hours a day, 7 days a week to help the NOPD deter crime. Uses a mobile application, which is known as the French Quarter Task Force, that allows businesses, residents, visitors, employees to easily report crimes and progress. The initiative has been credited by NOPD as having a positive impact on the reduction of violent crime, including removal of guns, drugs, and criminals from the French Quarter. As I said, in 2020, we knew that funding was going to be a problem, and so we reduced our deployment, but we still maintained a 24/7 presence. Even with that reduced deployment, we responded to over 2,800 app and dispatch calls for service. We had 5,050 citizen contacts, 2,543 business checks. We made 129 arrests and apprehensions, and wrote 346 summons and traffic citations. Now, in 2019, FQMD's Board of Commissioners engaged Interfor International, a global investigation and security consulting firm offering comprehensive domestic and foreign intelligence services. Released in 2020, Interfor's French Quarter Physical Security Assessment shows that FQMD has run a transparent and effective supplemental police patrol program, and that structure of a unified plan for security in the French Quarter moving forward should be built upon that success. FQMD has a track record of accountability and transparency with financial management by providing balance sheets and profit and loss statements of our accounts in monthly meetings. We have a security enforcement committee meeting where the patrols are reviewed by the committee. We have an active relationship with the New Orleans Police Department, 8th District, and continuing to maintain these patrols and be very transparent with what we do. And moving forward, the French Quarter Management District Board of Commissioners and working with our appointing entities understand from the stakeholders that post-certified officers are the priority for the French Quarter Economic Development District sales tax. The other major issue to be addressed with the sales tax is the underlying systemic issues of homelessness that result in chronic misdemeanor offenders revolving through the legal system. Majority of the calls related to this population are critical to addressing that population's mental health and physical well-being in order to keep these folks out of the system and really address what needs to be done. So At this point, the ballot language originally submitted by Councilmember Palmer was vetted by voters represented by both residential groups in the quarter, as well as with French Quarter businesses that are willing to tax themselves higher than their competing businesses outside the quarter. It's important to have their support because their approval and support is necessary for the voters to approve this referendum. I'm very happy to talk more about this, but we have spent months working with the voters, working with the businesses to assure that there was ballot language put forward that was vastly different than what they saw in December. And so I would be happy to take any questions that y'all might have.
Thank you, Carly. And I just wanted to clarify too, that the administration has 2 appointments on this board as well, that were continually briefed on this ballot language moving forward. I also would like to state for the record again, that we're trying to find something palatable that not just is voted and passes at the ballot for additional security resources in the French Quarter, but also is very open and transparent. And this is the second step. First was actually calling for the election. This is actually the ballot language. The second step is the crafting of a CEA between the administration and FQMD in terms of a greater accountability. And as I've stated to my council members, that CEA has to still come in front of the city council for approval to ensure again that the levels of transparency and accountability that we want are codified. So with that, do we have any other council members? Any comments or questions?
Yes, ma'am, I do. The confecting of the CEA, I get that, but how can the CEA be contradictory to what the ballot language is?
The CEA is going to spell out the relationship between FQMD and the city of New Orleans. In terms of victory, your point is well taken. The split of the money and how the resources are utilized remains the same.
So there's nothing, if this amendment, as Cindy is asking for, is not adopted, there is nothing that the CEA can do to change that, correct?
Correct.
Okay. I have, along with Councilmember Nguyen, some unreadiness about the structure. And I'm not comfortable with having publicly raised tax dollars controlled by an entity that doesn't have a publicly accountable individual there. Now, I get it that the French Quarter needs security, but so does every other district in the city. But I'm not comfortable with this the way that it's structured. So I support Councilmember Nguyen's amendment, and I hope that you all will allow it to be adopted.
Quick question,
Thank you. Any other comments, questions?
Kristen.
Yes, I'm sorry, right now.
Thank you. I have a question about the amendments and amendment process. First, Councilmember Nguyen, are these 2 separate amendments that you're introducing? I actually don't have them in front of me. I don't
Yeah.
have them.
I think it's going to be one friendly amendment. I'm going to forward to you right now, Councilmember Moreno.
Okay,
Give me
great.
a minute.
And
Yeah.
then my question would be, Adam, would we need to take an additional break to consider this new amendment?
If we are going to amend the amendment, we will need to take an additional break for public comment. I do not think it needs to be 30 minutes. I think a 10-minute break would be sufficient. However, we need to read the language into the record first and obviously do that.
Gotcha. And the other thing, Councilmember Nguyen, that I would ask is I'm wondering if we can bifurcate your amendment. They're 2 kind of separate issues. One being on the split. I certainly understand, your point of, not wanting to tie the hands of how we should spend the money because situations can change. So I get that. I think that should be one amendment. And then the second amendment should be on whether the money should be administered by the FQMD. So I'm wondering if we can bifurcate the amendments, if we could take them separately.
I don't see any reason why we have to take it separately. So, I mean, it's just 2 simple things. Removing the word equally and removing administered by the French Quarter. And then I also wanted to piggyback on that. I know Carly mentioned about that the funds in the past has been administered, that police patrol was provided, and there's accountability. Then if that's the case, then if there's accountability and money has been used properly for the need of the French Quarter, why do we need to change the structure and then have a Pacific group to administer it now? Carly?
Well, it was administered by the French Quarter Management District. That's who provided the accountability and transparency, and that's why the voters have made sure that that language was in this ballot initiative, because it wasn't in the previous ballot initiative, and that previous ballot initiative was voted down overwhelmingly because there wasn't this accountability and transparency in there. In the previous go around, we worked with Councilmember Palmer to craft a CEA that established agreement monitors, and the agreement monitors were the FQMD, it was the administration, it was District C, or we had the signatory of the FQEDD, which at that time was District C, and I imagine it still would be. And there was going to be, we had suggested monthly meetings. I think it was then changed to quarterly meetings where we have set key performance indices upon which we all agree that the success of the program would be judged. And we are still committed to having these key performance indices. You know, we've provided accountability and transparency in the program for 6 years, and I think that's why it's so beloved by the residents and businesses in the French Quarter. And I think that any amendment that, you know, remove those checks and balances is not going to be passed by the voters. We've spent months working on this. We've spent a great deal of time working with the residential groups and businesses to make sure that, you know, we carry forward the accountability and transparency that they rely on in supplemental programs. And so to answer your question, the reason that it's been accountable and transparent all this time is because FQMD has provided that service.
Christian, I thought you gave me different information than that.
The FQMD has always managed the security patrol.
They manage.
Yes, they've always managed the task force.
But the funds were
managed it. This simply establishes dedicated funding for it rather than having NOCO, which paid for it in the past.
I think, Christian, I think Josh Cock is on from the administration. Maybe that could also help clear up some of questions in reference. I think Jay had in reference to the CA and the ballot language.
Thanks, council members. Can everybody hear me?
Yes.
Okay. So, you know, the core issue here is really around good governance. And the principle is simple. When taxpayer money is collected, the people who are administering that money should be directly elected by taxpayers. Previously, in the FQEDD, the money was collected by the city council or the FQEDD, and then pursuant to a CEA, the details around management and what exact programs were funded, that was figured out via CEA. What's happening here, though, is the reverse. Effectively, this ballot language gives control of this revenue to the FQMD and kind of removes the city council's ability as a body to really control, you know, how the money is spent via contract. And so, you know, this is a really big sea change from what has existed before. And the core problem, again, goes back to something that's very simple. Taxpayer dollars need to be managed by people who are directly elected by taxpayers.
I think that it might be helpful to clarify that the tax previously paid for the Louisiana State Police. The funds were collected by the city and put into a bank account. And those funds were paid directly to the Louisiana State Police to fund Troop N. The French Quarter Management District was funded by the hotel self-assessment through the New Orleans and Company. So this is, the city opted not to continue running the state police, which is what this trust fund paid for before. So what I think Councilmember Palmer has suggested in this and what we've worked with the voters for is to continue running the task force that was previously paid for by New Orleans and Company through the hotel self-assessment. So the
No.
accountability,
Go ahead, I'm sorry.
so that I think that helps differentiate what the tax was used for before, was for Louisiana State Police Troop N, and the French Quarter Task Force was paid by the hospitality industry through the hotel self-assessment. What this goes to, what is on it before you today, is to use the tax to pay for the French Quarter Task Force.
Wait,
No, I fundamentally understand what you're saying, but it doesn't actually address the core problem that I'm bringing up. It doesn't matter whether the quarter for the quarter was paying for Louisiana State Police. It doesn't matter whether it was paying for the French Quarter Task Force. I'm talking about the process and the principle.
Yes, I was just trying to answer the council member's question.
thank you.
Okay, well, and I'm responding. And so in finishing my thought, the issue here is really one of process. It's, does the money go from citizens to the city council or the FQEDD, and then the decision is made on how the money is spent? Or does it go from citizens directly to a board that's unelected or unaccountable? And we believe that that's fundamentally bad government, and that's what this ballot language would be creating.
Thank you, Josh. And I think that's where I think there's several disagreements there. I do believe that there is accountability. I think we've seen this occur in other agencies as well, including, the culture fund that y'all just created. And I think we're going to hear about later today. But I do believe that with the CEA, it comes back again. There will be a three-party CEA after this ballot language is passed that again will lay out how this money is utilized and the exact partnership between both FQMD, the city of New Orleans, and the city and all of us. And so I really think that we have it set up here in a very good way. In addition to that, we know that there have been provisos. This is a 5-year tax. It is not in perpetuity. And we also know it's different from other entities in that it is not going to be bonded out. And that's something that we're dealing with at the CEA level. So again, council members, does anybody else have another question or comment? Okay. So at this point, I think I'd like to make a motion to approve the amendment as written.
I think we may have to take a 15-minute break, Christian, for the amendment that I just offered that Jay second.
I think right now only on the agenda is my amendment as written. Is that correct?
No, but I think if
Council-
Cindy,
Hold on. Councilman Moreno?
yeah, I was gonna say, I think if Cindy is offering an amendment, and I'll let Alex explain what we're doing next.
Are you working on the language, Councilman Moreno? Because I've not seen it.
I'm trying to, meet Councilmember Nguyen halfway. And so I think I would like to, work with her and see if I can offer an amendment, to cover the piece about the equally divided. I definitely see,
We have, you have that?
I just looked at Councilmember Nguyen's amendment. Councilmember Nguyen, you have 4 points to your amendment. I would forward with the first and second paragraphs of your amendment. But I think too, we need to be able to put that up on the screen or something so that the public can see it. So I'm not sure, Councilmember Nguyen, if you'd send it to Paul and Adam so that they can see what we're talking about. But I'm trying to work with all sides here, but Councilmember Nguyen, I'm willing to meet you halfway and vote for that first half of your amendment.
Well, I think going back to accountability, I think the second part of my amendment needs to be highly considered by all of us as we continue to make sure that public funds are being accounted by. And that, again, I think to Josh's points in reference to good government. And so I'll send my amendments to Paul and Adam, and then we could post it up for everybody viewing. Thank you.
What I'm saying is that absolutely, I think that your second amendment should be considered as well, but that these 2 points should just be voted on separately instead of just one amendment with 2 separate things on it. So I absolutely agree with you though, Councilmember Nguyen, it should be considered, but just voted on separately.
Recognizing that we're in a bit of a challenging time and that we have a council meeting to do after this, nevertheless, might it be beneficial to have maybe just a short recess so that we can kind of get everything loaded up technologically and get it in proper form for the clerk rather than trying to do this on the fly?
Works for me, but I leave it up to the chair.
It's up to the chair, but
That would be helpful. Will 10 minutes be enough time?
we'll move as fast as we can. I think we can do it.
I know we have a council meeting. Council President, how is this going to affect that? What is your wish?
No, I mean, let's take the recess, we're just we're gonna have to move quickly, to turn things around as soon as we're done. So let's just recess quickly and keep moving.
Okay, council members, let me say this. Before we can even do this amendment part, we still have to adopt the first motion. And then we'll come to the amendment part. Okay, because the amendment is on the second motion, not the first. So we need to adopt the first, and then we'll deal with the motions and these amendments for the second one.
Okay, so we adopt the amendment that was presented.
No, we haven't adopted anything.
That's what I'm asking.
Okay, so procedurally, what we will do when we come back after this 10 minutes is we're going to take up motion 21-1, which is the first motion, and then we're going to adopt it. And then we're going to do this second motion M 2021 number 2, and then we'll deal with each of the amendments. Now, if we're amending the amendment, that has to go first before your original amendment is adopted. And then we will adopt the motion as amended.
Great. Thank
Okay.
you.
All right.
Take a quick 10-minute recess.
Okay.
Councilmember Nguyen, would you give me a call, please?
separate
Council members, I'm going to be distributing drafts very shortly. Thank you for your patience. Yes.
Okay. Hello?
Councilmember, give me one moment, please.
Would love,
I'm trying to get the amendments.
okay.
Thank you.
Miss Laura needs one more minute.
Procedurally, just so everyone is clear, while Ms. Laura gathers things, we will, once the resolution comes up, there will be the first amendment offered, which is Councilmember Palmer's amendment. Councilmember Nguyen has offered an amendment to that amendment, removing the word equally. And then Councilmember Nguyen has also offered an amendment to the resolution itself. So we're going to have to read the new material and we'll have to do a 10-minute public comment break. But that's the rough order in which these things will be taken up.
Hey,
Okay.
Adam,
After this, I'm sorry, what, Council President?
Adam, I have a quick question. So when Kristen goes with her amendment, do we have to adopt that one first before we take up Councilmember
No.
Nguyen?
No, we're just gonna read it into the record first. Because Councilmember Nguyen is amending that amendment, we have to do Councilmember Nguyen's amendment, adopt that, and then adopt Councilmember Gibson Palmer amendment as amended. Because it's an amendment to that amendment. So that original amendment cannot be adopted until the amendment to it is adopted first.
Okay,
Procedurally, Madam Chair, procedurally, Madam Clerk,
Yes.
yes, Council,
just for procedural adoption process,
Mhm.
I believe what you were saying to Council President Moreno's question, whether the adoption of Councilmember Nguyen's amendment to Councilmember Palmer's original motion, if it were to be adopted, and that amendment would stand. That's what you were, that was your comment reflecting? I think that's why Councilmember Moreno, and I was a little confused as well.
Okay, so Councilmember Gibson Palmer has offered an amendment to this resolution.
and let's be clear, that was the amendment that was up on the screen for the public and for the,
Yes, that's the original amendment. In order for her amendment to be adopted, Councilmember Nguyen has offered an amendment to that amendment. I will read Councilmember Gibson Palmer amendment first, but it cannot be adopted because Councilmember Nguyen has offered an amendment to that amendment. So we will take up the original amendment, and then I will read the amendment to that amendment first after, and we will adopt the, if the body chooses, we will adopt Councilmember Nguyen's amendment first. After Councilmember Nguyen's amendment has been adopted, then we will go back to Councilmember Gibson Palmer amendment, and we will adopt it as amended.
okay, from there we go to Councilmember Nguyen's second amendment.
After we adopt yours as amended, then we will go to the second amendment that Councilmember Nguyen has offered.
Great, thank you.
Okay. Right there.
But we do, however, want to read them all into the record first because we have to break for public comment before we entertain any of them.
Correct. So do you want to do that? Who does that? Adam, is that you or Miss Laura?
Ms. Laura has a nicer voice.
I will do it.
Did you hear that, Miss Laura?
Yes. What he said, I had stepped away.
They want you to read the amendments.
Oh, okay, cool. I'm good with that. Okay. So now I'm gonna read the first, well, okay. Before we do that, we need to go ahead and adopt motion 2021-1 first, please. And then we can get to this other stuff that's gonna take a little bit more time. Councilmember Gibson Palmer. All right. So number one, the French Quarter, the motion M 2021-1 by District Member Gissison Palmer by request. To appoint members of the FQEDD's governing authority to act as authorized representatives of the FQEDD governing authority for the purpose of executing legislative instruments, cooperative endeavor agreement, and any other documents relating to governance and operation of the FQEDD. I need a move and a second, please.
So moved. We have a second?
Second,
Second by Councilmember Wynn.
Councilmember Gissison Palmer,
Yay.
Councilmember Wynn,
yay.
Councilmember Moreno,
Yay.
Councilmember Banks,
Yay.
Councilmember Brissette,
Yay.
Councilmember Jeruso.
Yay.
We have 6 yeas, no nays, and motion M 2021 has been adopted. Now, I will read the brief end first, and then I will read the 3 amendments, and then we will recess again for 10 minutes for these 3 amendments. We have Resolution R 2021-2 by District Member Gissison Palmer by request, authorizing and calling on April 24, 21 election at which the voters of the FQEDD will be asked to authorize an increase of a 0.245% in the sales tax within the boundaries of the FQEDD for the furtherance of economic development projects pursuant to the Louisiana Revised Statute 33-90-38-31 et seq. And there are several amendments. Amendment 1 by Councilmember Gissison Palmer. On the third unnumbered line of the last paragraph on page 2 of Exhibit A, delete 40,000 and insert in lieu thereof 10,600. Beginning on the 11th unnumbered line on page 2 of the resolution, following the word services, replace the words with a threshold of 2 million dedicated to supplemental police patrols and a 50-50 split above that threshold divided between growing the patrols and funding public safety programs as provided by the New Orleans Police Department with the words, with the initial $2 million collected in any year dedicated to supplemental police patrols and any additional revenue to be divided equally between additional patrols and public safety programs, including homeless assistance. Number 3, beginning on the 7th unnumbered line of the quoted proposition language on page 1 of Exhibit A, following the words services, replace the words with a threshold of $2 million dedicated to supplemental police patrols and a 50-50 split above that threshold, divided between growing the patrols and funding public safety programs as provided by the New Orleans Police Department, with the words with the initial $2 million collected in any year dedicated to supplemental police patrols and any additional revenue to be divided equally between additional patrols and safety and public safety programs, including homeless assistance. Beginning on the 15th unnumbered line on page 2 of the resolution, following the second instance of the word fund, insert and subject to quarterly budget and expenditure reports to the City Council. Beginning on the 11th unnumbered line of the quoted proposition language on page 1 of Exhibit A, following the second instance of the word fund, insert and subject to quarterly budget and expenditure reports to the City Council. That is the first amendment. Amendment number 2. One minute. Okay. This is Amendment 2. Council- I'm sorry. Number 2, this amendment is by Councilmember Nguyen. On the 6th unnumbered line of the second number amendment, delete the word equally. Number 2, on the 7th unnumbered line of the second number amendment, delete the word equally. Council members, we need to suspend the rules to receive this amendment.
So moved.
Second,
Second.
Councilmember Gibson Palmer,
Yay.
Councilmember Nguyen,
yay.
Councilmember Moreno, Councilmember Banks,
Yay.
Councilmember Brissette,
Yay.
and Councilmember Jeruso. We have 6 yeas, no nays, and this amendment has been received. The second amendment by Councilmember Nguyen. Number 1, beginning on the 14th unnumbered line on page 2 of the resolution, strike the words "and administered by the French Quarter Management District for fiscal and operational oversight of the FQEDD Trust Fund and services provided by such funds." Number 2, beginning on the 10th unnumbered line of the quoted proposition language on page 1 of Exhibit A, following the word "department," strike the words "and administered by the French Quarter Management District for fiscal and operational oversight of the French Quarter EDD Trust Fund and services provided by such fund." We need to suspend the rules to receive this amendment.
So moved.
Second,
Councilmember Gibson Palmer,
Yay.
Councilmember Nguyen,
yay.
Councilmember Moreno,
Yay.
Councilmember Banks,
Yay.
Councilmember Brissette,
Yay.
and Councilmember Jeruso.
Yay.
We have 6 yeas, no nays. The rules have been suspended to receive this amendment. So now we need to recess for 10 minutes for public comment.
Great. So moved. We'll recess for 10 minutes. We will be back here at 10:59. Thank you, council members. Council members, it's 10:59. Should we come back into session, please? Ms. Laura?
Okay. So what we're gonna do is I will read council members Gissas and Palmer's amendment first. Then I will read the amendment that Councilmember Nguyen has that's going to amend that amendment after. We will vote on that, and then we will vote on Councilmember Gissas and Palmer's amendment as amended.
We, Ms. Laura, would it be possible, council members, would you mind if we just did public comment first before we went into this?
Okay.
Okay, thank you. I'm going to put Mr. Andrew Sullivan on.
The first comment is from Brittany Moon McGovern, who is a paid representative of the French Quarter Business Association. The French Quarter Business Association Board of Directors support the ballot measure collecting 0.245% in a sales tax levied within the boundaries of the French Quarter Economic District for the purpose of funding post-certified supplemental police patrols and public safety programs that are fiscally administered by the French Quarter Management District, FQMD. The FQMD is a political subdivision of the state of Louisiana and is governed by 13 appointed board commissioners, including one member of the French Quarter Business Association. The governance of the FQMD allows for broad representation of the French Quarter stakeholders in a public forum. Additionally, the FQMD has a proven record of transparency and accountability in their management of the Supplemental Police Patrol Program, also known as the French Quarter Task Force, that recommends the agency as the ideal FQEDD trust fund administrators. The next comment is from Aaron Holmes, who is a paid representative of the Bouquet Property Owner and Residents Association. BC4's Board of Directors supports Resolution R-2021-2, calling for a special election on April 24th, 2021 to approve or disapprove of authorization to levy an increase of 0.245% in the sales tax for the purpose of funding enhanced and supplemental public safety services and homeless assistance services to facilitate economic development projects within the FQEDD. The safety and well-being of our French Quarter community of residents, workers, business owners, and visitors is paramount to ensuring a positive quality of life and economic recovery in this important neighborhood. We endorse this ballot language as it prioritizes the use of collected tax revenues to fund post-certified NOPD supplemental patrols within the district and homeless assistance services. Further, we find the French Quarter Management District is best poised to continue administering these programs, given their leadership representation by community stakeholders and past performance in managing the Supplemental Police Patrol Program. The next comment is by Jane Cooper, not a paid representative. FQMD has the support of the voters, and without the support of the voters, this will not pass. The next comment is by Elizabeth Stewart, not a paid representative. As someone who pays sales tax in the French Quarter, I find it ridiculous that once again, this body is advocating sending public money to an unelected, unaccountable board. There are constant complaints from this and unknown repercussions. This would be yet another instance of the council abdicating its responsibilities to oversee public money and instead give it to a group that frankly looks nothing like the district it purports to represent. The next comment is from Robert Sims, not a paid representative. The December 5th ballot failed due to a lack of clarity on how the tax revenues will be spent and due to a lot of misinformation was being published that confused the voters. Going forward, it is critical that we all work together to get this tax passed so additional resources can be deployed to help the 8th District keep the quarter safe. The French Quarter voters love the proactive and highly visible blue light vehicle patrols and have kept them safe for at least 6 years, yet those are not mentioned in the language. It will improve the odds of the tax passing if the last section of the ballot language is revised to read as follows. With a threshold of $2 million dedicated to continuance and growth of the blue light supplemental police crime prevention vehicle patrols, and a 50-50 split above that threshold divided between growing the blue light patrols and funding other supplemental public safety programs provided and managed by the New Orleans Police Department. The next comment is by Gail Cabot, not a paid representative. As Vice President of the French Quarter Citizens and one of a handful of French Quarter residents that created the French Quarter Supplemental Police Program, commonly known as the French Quarter Task Force Blue Light Patrol, I speak from experience and support the ballot language as written. The success of this program is based on French Quarter stakeholder involvement in the development and oversight of the Supplemental Police Patrol Program. The next comment is by Robert Sims. I believe he's already commented, but this is on a separate matter on the amendment. The amendment is definitely an improvement, and it's still lacking in addition to blue light patrols that the French Quarter voters really like. It will improve the odds of tax passing if ballot language is revised to replace supplemental police patrols with supplemental blue light vehicle patrols. The next comment is by George Heaps, not a paid representative. FQMB represents all the stakeholders in the French Quarter, and their support is needed for this to pass. Kristen Palmer's motion must be supported. The next comment is by Ethan Ellisted, yes, a paid representative of Macno. While Macno's concerns about the lack of representation of the French Quarter Management District Board remain, we are pleased to see the addition of the reporting requirements suggested by Councilmember Moreno and support that amendment. The next comment is by Brittany Moore-McGovern, again of the FQBA, commenting on the amendments. The French Quarter Business Association Board of Directors urges council members to reject the amendment as presented. The French Quarter Management District has a proven record of over 5 years of transparency and accountability in their inception and management of the Supplemental Police Patrol Program, also known as the French Quarter Task Force, that recommends the agency as the ideal and community-trusted FQEDD trust fund administrators. And the final comment is from Justin Schmidt, not a paid representative. This comment applies to any amendment presented to amend the agreed-upon language introduced by Councilmember Palmer. It takes a special kind of arrogance, far more than I have ever exhibited, to surpass that of Josh Cox's right now in objection to the manner in which the funds will be managed. Mr. Cox, given what you have been doing with the public funds through the Edna Wisner Donation Trust for the past 2 years, do you really think you are qualified to make such an assessment of what is good for the public? Please, the administration is on limited life support. Don't make things worse than they already are. Stay safe and well, Justin Schmidt. And that is all the public comments.
Thank you, Mr. Sullivan. So with that, and thank you, public, for weighing in on this very important matter. And shall we begin? Ms. Laura, do you want to brief us again on how this vote shall go?
Okay.
Procedurally.
I will read Councilmember Gissison Palmer's amendment in first. And we will not vote on it because Councilmember Nguyen is offering an amendment to that amendment. If the body decides to adopt Councilmember Nguyen's amendment, then that one will be adopted first. And then we will adopt Councilmember Gissison Palmer's amendment as amended. And then the other amendment that Councilmember Nguyen remitted, we will read that into the record and then we will vote on that. And then we will adopt the resolution as amended.
Thank you.
Okay. The first amendment is by District Member Gissison Palmer. On the third unnumbered line of the last paragraph on page 2 of Exhibit A, delete 40,000 and insert in lieu thereof 10,600. Beginning on the 11th unnumbered line on page 2 of the resolution, following the word services, replace the words with a threshold of $2 million dedicated to supplemental police patrols and a 50-50 split above that threshold divided between growing the patrols and funding public safety programs as provided by the New Orleans Police Department, with the words, with the initial $2 million collected in any year dedicated to supplemental police patrols and any additional revenue to be divided equally between additional patrols and public safety programs, including homeless assistance. Beginning on the 7th unnumbered line of the quoted proposition language on page 1 of Exhibit A, following the word services, replace the words with a threshold of $2 million dedicated to supplemental police patrols and a 50-50 split above that threshold divided between growing the patrols and funding public safety programs as provided by the New Orleans Police Department, with the words, with the initial $2 million collected in any year dedicated to supplemental police patrols and any additional revenue to be divided equally between additional patrols and public safety programs, including homeless assistance. beginning on the 15th unnumbered line on page 2 of the resolution, following the second instance of the word fund, insert and subject to quarterly budget and expenditure reports to the city council. Beginning on the 11th unnumbered line of the quoted proposition language on page 1 of Exhibit A, following the second instance of the word fund, insert and subject to quarterly budget and expenditure reports to the city council. That is the First Amendment. The amendment by Councilmember Nguyen. On the 6th unnumbered line of the second numbered amendment, delete the word equally. On the 7th unnumbered line of the second numbered amendment, delete the word equally. Those are the amendments.
Thank you. Is there a motion?
I'd like to move on the amendment.
Mhm.
Is there a second?
Which one?
We're voting on Councilmember Nguyen's amendment to Councilmember Gissison Palmer's amendment. She deleted the word equally in this first amendment.
Okay, gotcha.
Move forward equally from my amendment.
Gotcha.
So there's a move by Councilmember Nguyen. Is there a second?
Yes, there is a second.
That was seconded by, was it Councilman Moreno first?
Council,
Councilman Moreno. Please do roll call, Ms. Laura.
okay. Councilmember Gissison Palmer,
Yay.
Councilmember Nguyen,
Yay.
Councilmember Moreno,
Yay.
Councilmember Banks,
Yay.
Councilmember Brissette,
Yes.
Councilmember Jeruso.
Yay.
We have 6 yeas, no nays, and this amendment is adopted. Now we'll need to adopt Councilmember Gissison Palmer's amendment as amended.
So moved. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Councilmember Nguyen. Roll call, please.
Councilmember Gissison Palmer,
Yay.
Councilmember Nguyen,
Yay.
Councilmember Moreno,
Yay.
Councilmember Banks,
Yay.
Councilmember Brissette,
Yay.
Councilmember Jeruso.
Yay.
We have 6 yeas, no nays, and the amendment as amended has been adopted. Now for the next amendment by Councilmember Nguyen. Beginning on the 14th unnumbered line on page 2 of the resolution, strike the words "and administered by the French Quarter Management District for fiscal and operational oversight of the FQ EDD Trust Fund and services provided by such fund." Beginning on the 10th unnumbered line of the quoted proposition language on page 1 of Exhibit A, following the word department, strike the words "and administered by the French Quarter Management District for fiscal and operational oversight of FQEDD Trust Fund and services provided by such fund." That is the amendment.
Thank you. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Moved by Councilmember Nguyen. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Councilmember Banks. Roll call, please.
Councilmember Gissison Palmer,
No.
Councilmember Nguyen,
Yay.
Councilmember Moreno,
No.
Councilmember Banks,
Yay.
Councilmember Brissette,
No.
Councilmember Jeruso.
No.
This amendment fails.
Thank you.
Now we will adopt the resolution as amended.
So moved.
It was seconded by whom?
Seconded by, no, I'm sorry.
Councilmember Gissison Palmer,
Yay.
Councilmember Nguyen,
Yay.
Councilmember Moreno,
Yay.
Councilmember Banks,
Nay.
Councilmember Brissette,
Yay.
and Councilmember Jeruso.
Yay.
We have 5 yeas, no nays, and the resolution as amended has been adopted.
Thank you, council members.
Anything else, council member?
Yes, there are no other matters. As there are no other matters, I take a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Moved by Councilmember Russo, second by Councilmember Moreno.
Councilmember Gibson Palmer,
Yay.
Councilmember Nguyen,
Yay.
Councilmember Moreno,
Okay.
Councilmember Banks,
Yay.
Councilmember Brissette,
Yay.
Councilmember Jeruso.
Yay.
We have 6 yeas, no nays, and the meeting has adjourned.
Thank you very much, and thank you, council members, for your time. I truly appreciate it.
Okay, council members, we're gonna need some time to shut this meeting down to start up the next.